Hey everybody, welcome back to Watch and Carry. So in today's video, we're going to be doing another mod for this Casio World Time you have in front of you. I'm also going to be going over the differences between doing a polarized film modification versus a colored filter modification, just so you can kind of understand the difference between the two. And as always, for the parts listed in this video, just check the description down below. And wrist check for today. I've had a few people tell me to do a wrist check at the beginning of my videos, so here it is. This is a Timex automatic Navi XL. And it's a pretty cool Timex. Timex has recently reissued, or not reissued, but come up with new lines for their products. And they've kind of gone back to their roots with making automatic pieces. And so this is a really cool one that has a nice green face. This usually comes with a different strap, but I have a Timex MK1 in my collection that has this really great olive strap, and it fits perfectly here on this watch. So anyways, let's go ahead and get into it. So you're going to need your watch, obviously. We also are going to need a little bit of Goo Gone to do the negative display. So that's that right there. Got a few Q-tips here. These are pointed Q-tips. Okay, a pair of scissors, any style will do. For the polarized film, you're going to need 0° linear polarizing film. This comes as either an adhesive version or non-adhesive. This is adhesive. And if you're going to be doing a colored filter, which we are not for this video, but I'm just going to explain, you're going to need some colored lens filters, which are basically transparent films, usually going over filming lenses to give color to backgrounds. And this one in particular is a sample kit from Leaf Filters. Okay, and some of the supplies that I put down below might be sold out when you click on the link. So if they are, just go ahead and search for something that's going to be similar. All right, so to go ahead and get started, I like to remove the strap. So you're going to take your lug tool here and you're going to pry inwards on your spring bars. Try to limit touching the lugs as much as you can, because the lugs on these Casio World Times are resin. And over time, what will happen is you'll kind of chip away at that lug, and you'll end up with what's happened to this one here that was given to me by my uncle. He changed his straps quite a bit, and you can see here that it kind of chipped at the spring bar housing here. And so now this can no longer hold a spring bar. It needs to be repaired with some epoxy. So just a little tip there. So we are going to set these spring bars to the side and our strap. Okay, you're going to have 4 screws on the back here with a Phillips. Go ahead and remove those. It's been quite a while since I've done a video, so I hope you guys are all doing well, staying safe, and in good health. Definitely filmed a lot more of these videos at the beginning of the pandemic, but gotten a little bit busier recently with some other hobbies on my car, but I thought it was time to make one of these videos again. So here are your 4 screws. Go ahead and keep careful note of those, because those are really hard to replace at the hardware store. We're going to gently lift up on the case back here and set that guy to the side. This is what you call the watch module on the inside, and then you also have this O-ring or right here. I like to remove that because it often falls off without me noticing. Go ahead and take any kind of tool. I like to use a toothpick here. You can go to the 6 o'clock or the 12 o'clock position, and you can go ahead and just pry up on the end like that and lift up on the module. And then there's also this other part here that you can kind of tap down. That's called the masking. And then I'm going to put this face up, so that way I limit dust going inside the case, and I'll set this guy to the side. So watch module and masking on the right hand side. So when it comes to modifications, we have a few options. So let's zoom out here. So this is a non-modified factory display. This masking is from a different watch, but just know that there's nothing that's really been modified, nothing that's been cut. So when you're talking about most basic modifications on the Casio World Time, you've usually got a couple of options. You've got polarizing film, and then you've got these colorized filters or gel filters that you can use. Now, let's focus on the gel filters first. You have different brands. Leaf Filters is one brand. I think Roscoe is another brand. These can usually be found on Amazon or eBay. If not, your local camera store, if they still exist, they don't really exist by me anymore, will likely carry these. But as I mentioned, these are transparent. They come in different colors. And if you're going to modify with this, what people do is they basically choose a color. So let's say red. They decide where they want to put that color over the display. So let's say I wanted to make the filters red over here at the top and then keep it basic here at the bottom. Then what you'll do is you'll take your masking, put this underneath your filter. You'll go ahead and cut this rectangular shape out here. So now we have a red filter on the top. Then you're going to use either double-sided sticky tape, which is best, or you can also use a little bit of super glue, which wouldn't be my first recommendation, but that's something that you can also do to kind of glue that filter around the borders here. Okay, and attach that filter permanently to the underside of this masking. So just to kind of mimic how that would look, we would basically grab our masking like this, and let's pretend that we've cut out our filter and glued it underneath. And then what you'll do is you'll have a modification that kind of looks like that, right? And so that's how these gel filters work. They work over the stock display without any cutting to the stock display. And you just choose where you want them and you adhere them with either glue or double-sided tape. And you can do this to anything. You can do it to, like maybe just one of the dials, sub-dials. You can just choose to do it to the whole entire watch. You can choose to do one color on top and then, go to a different color for the bottom. So many different options that you can play around with. Now, the other option that you have, besides these colored filters, are polarizing films. So let's bring out the polarizing film here. Okay, again, we have our stock display here, our masking to the right, and I'm going to get a modified Casio out of my case here and kind of show you what I mean. So, perfect. So on the left, we have and this is perfect because these are the exact same looking modules. So on the left, you have a factory display. Okay, and on the right, you can see that the bottom is blacked out and the numerals are more of a white color. This is called an inverted display or a negative display. And what happens here is you have to actually remove the top layer of this bottom part of the display and replace it with this polarizing film and then orient the polarizing film in a certain way to give off the negative effect. And that will become more clear as we modify our green watch over here. Some people have asked, is it possible to just take a brand new polarizing film, put it over the stock display without doing any cutting and just turning this to get the negative display? So no, you can't. So let me show you what happens here. If you look at our stock display and I put the film over it, okay, that's basic. That doesn't look any different. If I turn it, it becomes pitch black, but we lose the numerals. Back to regular and back to pitch black. So that doesn't work. What if we turn this over? Well, you get this weird kind of rainbowy gradient color. It's actually kind of cool, but not really the negative display that we want here. Okay, so to answer that question, no, you cannot just put a polarizing film over a stock watch without removing the top layer of the stock watch first. Okay, another question people have asked is, once you put a negative display on a watch, so you've cut out the top layer, you've replaced it with a polarizing film and oriented it correctly, can you colorize a polarized display? Can I make this bottom piece a different color? So no, you can't. So this one already has been modified. Let's go ahead and take our gel filters. Okay, and let's go to something that's a little bit easier for the camera. So I don't know, let's see if we have a yellow here. There we go. Neon or spring yellow. Okay, this is a transparent film, as you can see here underneath my fingers. Okay, if I go ahead and I put this yellow filter over, you can see that yes, I can make the top normal display yellow, but the bottom continues to remain black. Okay, so, and there's no orientation here with these colored filters. It doesn't really matter. It's always going to stay the same, right? Versus if I take a normal display that's non-negative, then yes, you can change the look of that, but no, you cannot change the color look of a polarized filter with a colored display. Okay, so hope that kind of makes sense to you. Lots of different terms here. I recommend watching a bunch of my other videos and then also some other Casio World Time modification videos on YouTube to kind of gain a sense. The more you play around with these watches and do these modifications, the more you'll understand. So, all right, so for the purpose of this video, what we're going to do is take this display and make it completely negative. So in this case, on the right, I have it half negative, half normal, or half negative, half positive. And here, this is full positive, but now I want to make it full negative. So the entire background, including the top, is going to be black with these white numerals on the bottom and these white indices rotating here at the top. Okay, so we'll set our watch to the side. And let's go ahead and disassemble our module. Try to limit as much as you can touching the display. We have a glove shortage here where I live, so I don't have any gloves to use for this project. Otherwise, I would be using nitrile gloves, powder-free. So just limit touching the display. You're going to turn this guy over and look here at the back for a few pins. Actually, let's turn it this way. So you have one pin here, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Go ahead and pry them in and outward. And you'll notice the display start to kind of disappear on you as you're doing that because you're essentially removing the battery from the module. Okay, and we'll lift up gently. Be careful as you're lifting up. Okay, we're going to gently turn this over. Okay, this part over here, take note that you do have a spring right here at the top left corner. So this can often get removed. So I'm just going to leave that in place. But what I like to do is I take a fine tip Sharpie and I make a circle around that hole. So that way if my spring pops out, I don't have to guess, like, did it go into this hole, that one, that one? I know that it's the one that has the Sharpie circle around it. Okay, so just take note of that spring. If it's still in there, leave that in place. This bottom part, we're going to set that to the side. Let's put that over here. Okay, and now we're going to work with our display over here. So try to use plastic for this part. Again, try to minimize bare hands touching this. So, you know, I'm not practicing the best etiquette here for watchmaking, but we'll just do what we can over here. Okay, and that's my dog Cooper in the background. He's hearing some people talking outside, so you might hear him barking throughout the video. Okay, so we're going to take this part, we're going to invert this over, set this guy to the side with the black square facing up. Okay, you're going to have this piece right here. Okay, set that to the side as well. Then you're going to flip this part around here, kind of tap it down, set that to the side. Okay, and then we have our module border here, or housing, and then we have the actual display here. So you'll notice here that we have this little half moon shape here. Okay, that's your 6 o'clock position. So what I usually like to do here is I go to that 6 o'clock half moon and kind of pry to the side and push the module from underneath. So you can kind of free it up like that. And what you'll do is you'll kind of pop up the display like so. Okay, so carefully remove this off. Go back to the housing. You're going to have a couple pieces here that are very small but very important. They look like thin strips of white foam. These are very important to allow the display to be visible when you reassemble the watch. And so what I like to do is I just take them out. Okay, and we'll set these guys to the side. And then here's your housing. We can set that to the side. Okay, so you now have your display. The best way to think about this display is to kind of look at my 3 fingers here on the left. So right now you're kind of looking at the display in this orientation. If I, or I'm sorry, you're looking at the display in this orientation. Okay. Now if I turn the display to the side like this, 90 degrees to the side, I'll also rotate my fingers to the side. There are basically 3 layers that make up this very thin display. Okay. And the outermost, or the one that's most in front, that's facing you with these 3 black dots, is this layer here. So again, we'll take this, flip it to the side, okay, and this is our top layer here. This is actually called a polarizing film at the very top, and it's the exact same type of film that you have here on the right side. So what we're doing in making a negative display is you're removing with a hobby knife, so let's pretend this is our knife, you're removing the entire factory polarizing display off, okay? So that's removed. And then you're replacing it with a brand new polarizing display. So we'll put that in here. But then you're going to turn the polarizing display 90 degrees to the right or to the left to get the blacked out effect where your background is going to be black and your numerals are going to be white. If you did not rotate the film 90 degrees to the left or to the right, and you just kept it the same orientation as the factory display, then you would end up with the exact same display that you did before we began this project. So you're basically just taking off the factory polarizing film, putting a brand new one on, turning it 90 degrees to the right or the left, and then that's it, reassembling the watch. Okay, so to get this top polarizing film off, what you have to do is carefully remove it. Now, I like to use a few tools for this. You're going to need a pin. So here's my Victorinox, say Tinker Deluxe. I got this when I was a kid. It comes with this pin here. Okay, so I'm going to set that to the side. And then I like to use also a guitar pick. Guitar picks are thin enough, but you can see here that I've kind of beveled it even more. So right there we have that shiny piece of light. I've kind of cut with my hobby knife a little bit more off that edge to make it just a little bit more finer. Okay, so those are the main 2 tools you're going to be using. And then for our liquid, we're going to be using a little bowl here of Goo Gone. Okay, so work over a towel, by the way, because as you start to clean off some of the glue, you're going to be wiping that away, and you're going to need a towel for that. All right, so what I like to do first is take my bowl of Goo Gone, okay, and then I just like to kind of soak all 4 corners for a few seconds. And Goo Gone basically is an adhesive remover. So as we talked about, we have that polarizing film on the top. The polarizing film is adhered to the other layer beneath it with glue. And so we need this Goo Gone to loosen that glue so we can pry up with our pin and our guitar pick. And one more corner. Oh, the whole thing fell in. That's okay. If the whole thing falls in, it's really not a big problem because you're going to be putting Goo Gone on the whole thing anyways. Just keeps it a little bit cleaner. Okay, so we will set that to the side, and then I will put that there. And then while that's waiting, I'm going to put my Q-tips all ready so they can get saturated in that Goo Gone and ready to go when I need them. And I'm going to grab another towel here just for my hands, so that way I don't get too much Goo Gone residue on my tools. Okay, so now that this is soaked, what you're going to do, and this is probably the trickiest part. Let me see if I can focus here. Okay. You see how right here, there's a little edge hanging off? Okay. That's actually the middle layer. So if we go back to our example again, okay, we're removing this layer, but you have this little hanging edge. So what you want to do is, if this is my pin, you want to drag your pin. It's okay if you're dragging it on the top, because even though it's scratching it, we're going to remove that. And then you're waiting for it to kind of drop off the top layer and hit that edge of the middle layer. and that tells your pin that you're in the right place to start pushing in between. You're going to insert the pin, get a little opening, and then you'll get your guitar pick and basically pry open the rest. So we need to hit that edge, and the best way to do this is to kind of listen for a click here. So kind of dragging this on top. Hear that click? That's the sound of the pin dropping from the top layer down to the middle layer. Okay. Now I want to let you know, if you were not going to remove this whole display, like let's say you're keeping half of it regular and the other half you're removing, you would not want to drag your pin over the part that you're keeping, because we're scratching it right now. But because I'm removing the whole top layer, it doesn't really matter. So we're going to listen for that sound and try to do this in a corner is better. Okay. And then once you hear that sound, go ahead and take your pin, set this on the table, keep your pin in place, and gently push on that pin. Let me zoom in here so you can kind of see. Okay, and we're going to gently push. Okay, now I'm going to do this away from me because I don't want to push towards my fingers. So click and push, and we just want to see a little air bubble kind of appear. There we go, right there. See that tiny air bubble? And you can kind of see how it's a little bit foggy underneath. That's the glue residue coming separated. So that's all you need, is that little tiny bit of the pin, and then we'll remove the pin off. Okay, you don't want to push the pin too far down, because then you're going to damage the layers beneath it. Now that we have our little piece of corner here, we're going to take our guitar pick. I'm going to put a little bit of Goo Gone there and put it right at that same spot where we had the pin, right at that beveled edge of the guitar pick. That goes in nice and easily, and then we're just going to rock this back and forth. And you can see that top layer starting to remove from the middle layer. Okay, go nice and smooth. I try to get two edges started and then kind of rock down to the other two edges. Okay, I'll kind of turn this over. Having a hard time getting it back. Let's go back to the top here. There we go. Okay, got three edges open, and then our fourth. And there you go. That is the factory polarizing film. Okay, so now let me kind of show you, even though there's no battery here, what happens, right? So if I put this over, we have our normal display, right? If I flip this 90 degrees, it's black. Normal, black. Now, if I go ahead and put it on the opposite side, which is the wrong side, we have this kind of weird purple. You see how it's kind of greenish and then bluish? It's kind of that gradient color. That's how you know you're not on the right side. Okay, this is the right side. Pure clear, pure black. So now what we're going to do, this film is exactly the same as this. Okay, so I'm going to take my film here. I need to determine which side am I on, the right side, the front, or the back. So let's go to the back first. I know this is the wrong side, but let's go ahead and put that over. Look at that weird rainbow effect, right? That weird green and blue that we saw earlier. That means I'm on the wrong side, so I need to flip this over. And now I have pure black and then white, right? Now we want a negative display, so we want to see the pure black, okay? So that's how you know how to cut this in the right orientation. Because if I was to cut it this shape, right, and then put this piece down over, I've just made the same exact thing that I took apart. So what I'm going to do is rotate this 90 degrees so it's completely blacked out, and then push this down, and then trace this with a Sharpie. My pin to the side here. Grab our Sharpie, and you can kind of make out where to draw your square. Make sure this polarizing film is not kinked or bent in any way. If there's any creases, you want to go to a nice area that's crease free. So pitch black. That looks pretty good. I'm going to take my Sharpie and I'm going to trace the display that's underneath. Just outline it, okay? Okay, and then I'm going to write the letter T for here. Okay, and then remove that off. Okay, now the reason I'm writing the letter T there is that's T for top. That's the part that should be facing towards me, and it's on the top. This polarizing film that you see in front of you, by the way, is actually also made of 3 layers. So, you're looking at the film like this right now. If I turn this to the side, you'd also have 3 layers. You have the actual polarizing film in the middle. You have a protective backing on the bottom side with an adhesive side here. And then you have a non-adhesive side here with another protective backing. Okay, so the T that you see on top is written on top of the protective layer here. So that's just to let you know which side to orient this in, because once you cut this, it's going to be hard to determine how you should lay it down on top of the display. So we'll just cut this out. Okay, that's pretty good. Now we're going to clean this up. I don't want to see any Sharpie marks, because if I do that, it's going to be a little bit larger than the factory display, and then that will make some problems when we reassemble. So try to trim this as much as you can so you don't see any of these Sharpie marks on the corner. Sorry, it's off camera there. And one more side. It's got a little bit more Sharpie there. And that looks pretty good. Okay. All right, go ahead and set that to the side. Let's clean up our area a little bit here. And then we're going to move on to the Goo Gone. These are just some plastic tweezers, by the way, like really cheap jeweler's tweezers that help quite a bit. Okay, so take your new polarizing film, set that off somewhere carefully where it will not get bent. And then we're going to move back to our display. Now, this looks clear. Remember, we've removed the old factory polarizing display. But now we're going to have some glue that's left on here. I can't take my new polarizing film and just stick it on, because you have all these little particles of glue. You can see it here as I rotate this in the light, and those particles are going to show up when you reassemble the watch, and it will not look clean. So we're going to leave this down, take your Q-tip that's saturating in Goo Gone, and just kind of rub the Goo Gone generously over the top of the entire display. Okay, so now I have a nice, pretty generous film of this Goo Gone on top. So I'm going to leave that there for a couple minutes, 2 or 3 minutes, and then we'll come back and do the rest of this. Okay, so it's been about 3 minutes right now. We're going to take our Q-tip that's been saturated in Goo Gone and just kind of rub away. I like to work from one side to the other, so I'm going to work from the right side and work my way to the left here. And we're just going to make small, tiny circles. Don't put too much pressure on the Q-tip, because the Q-tip does have this harder root tip underneath the soft cotton. So I'm just making light even pressured circles here. And you can see that the glue will start to kind of clump together. Okay. There we go. Once you feel like you have some pretty good chunks there, what you can do is take your towel that you're working on and then just wipe that excess away. Wipe in one direction to kind of keep the glue chunks flowing in one direction. Okay, and then we're going to rotate our display in the light, and we're going to look for any other residual glue. So let's see, you can see a little bit right here by my index finger. Ooh, lots of glue there. You see that? Tons of glue all over the place. This should look completely squeaky clean. So we're going to repeat this again. Saturate the whole display. Okay, take a Q-tip, small circular motions, nice light but firm pressure. Get these chunks to kind of collect and wipe them off. Keep doing this over and over till you start to see your display get nice and shiny and clear. This is an example for here. See how this part is nice and clear? There's no glue here, but the rest of it around it still has these streaks of glue. So it should all look like this. You can also listen for your Q-tip, because as you start rubbing, you start getting down to that clean surface, you're going to be hearing a squeaky sound. So that tells you you're kind of towards the end over there. And then every now and then, take a look at your Q-tip. Make sure that you are not rubbing the harder tip underneath the soft cotton into the display. Once you've kind of used up your Q-tip, you can rotate it, use that end, and then if that's done, get a brand new Q-tip and repeat. So I'm going to pause here because this can take anywhere from 5 minutes to 20 minutes if this is your first time, but you really just want to get the surface nice and clean. So I'll check back in with you. Okay, it's been about 2-3 minutes right now. So here's that squeaky sound I was kind of telling you about. Okay. The edges also are a little bit more stubborn to get the glue off, so pay special attention to just the edges. Okay. Okay, and we're going to wipe it clean, and let's take a look at how we're doing here. Okay, you can kind of see this looks a lot better than before, but we still got quite a bit of glue here. Okay, a little bit of glue here. And in the corners, as I mentioned, the corners really like to hold on to that glue. So we'll keep working at it, and I'll check back in. Okay, it's been about another 2 minutes here. Okay, we've wiped off our excess glue. We're going to rotate this in the light, and that looks really good. No more streaks of glue that I can see. Okay, that looks pretty good. Once you think you've got most of that glue off, go ahead and take another towel that's clean. So I'm going to use a different corner of my towel here and go ahead and just buff that out. Okay, and I'm not working with gloves here, so at this point I would change my gloves for a fresh pair of dry gloves. So I'm going to go off camera here and just wash my hands, because this Goo Gone kind of gets all over the place. Okay, so hands are nice and clean. I'm going to flip this towel over to the clean side, so no Goo Gone over there. And let's get our display here and our polarizing filter that we cut out from earlier. Okay, so you want to make sure that you have this polarizing film in the right orientation with the letter T. Make sure the T is not on the opposite side, on the back side, right? It should be nice and crisp and black, and that it's on the right orientation, right? That it's upright. Okay, and then basically what we're going to do is we're going to peel off the back of this polarizing film, lay this on top, and then push out any air bubbles from the inside out. And then once we feel that we've got all the air bubbles out, we'll remove the top protective layer from the polarizing film. So the T will disappear once we remove that top layer. So to do this, you want to cover as much of this white screen as possible with the polarizing film. Now you might have a little bit of white borders, so if I kind of lay this down just kind of roughly on top, you'll notice that it's slightly smaller than the display beneath. That's okay because the housing itself and actually the masking is going to cover the rest of those exposed parts. What you do not want to have is you do not want to have this polarizing film become larger than the display beneath, because if it's too large, when we reassemble the watch, the different parts, especially this part right here, these clips are actually going to pinch down on the excess polarizing film. And if there's too much, it's going to push down on that film and it's going to cause the film to flex up, allowing air to enter. And now you're going to have this uneven negative looking display, which is what we don't want to have happen. So a little bit smaller is okay. Too large is going to be a problem. So we'll go ahead and size that up. That looks good. There's nothing I need to trim there. So we'll take this, we'll peel off the back. Okay, don't touch the left side with your fingers because you'll get fingerprints on there. And then we'll hold this carefully. Line this up at the top, and I like to stick the top part first. Okay, and then line up our left and right, and then kind of lay it down from left to right in one single motion and kind of drag your finger like that. Okay, then I'm going to take a brand new Q-tip. Okay, and carefully, okay, work this from inside to outside. Kind of like you're putting a protective glass on a cell phone. Kind of want to push these air bubbles out to the side. You could use your finger, I guess, too. The Q-tip's just a little bit more precise. You'll notice I'm holding my Q-tip at an angle here. I'm not really pushing the tip down because I don't want this harder piece of the Q-tip beneath to scratch the pretty fragile polarizing film. Just hold it from the side like that. You might get a little bit of the Sharpie from the letter T rubbing off that you drew earlier, but that's okay because we've already stuck this on. Okay, and then invert the other side here. Redo it again. I would say this is the hardest part of the job, is trying to get all these air bubbles out. One other option you can do is buy polarizing film that does not have an adhesive backing, because if there's no adhesive backing, there's no need to worry about air bubbles getting created here. I've never had a supplier have that type of polarizing film in stock, so I can't really comment how it would look compared to this adhesive version. But if you do try it, please comment down below, because I would think it would be easier to use non-adhesive backed polarizing film. Okay, so it looks pretty good. So now what we'll do is we'll take our tweezers and just kind of lift up on one side to peel off. We have two layers now left here. We have the film, polarizing film beneath, and the protective film on the top where we drew that letter T. I'm going to remove that top protective layer with the tweezers and really minimize touching the polarizing film with your tool. It scratches very, very easily. And of course, just like a black car, any scratch on a black surface is going to really show up. Now save this protective film to the side and then lift up on your display, and now we have just one layer. There's the other two have been removed. Now we want to rotate this left to right, up and down, and look for any air filters in the light. So lots of air bubbles. I'm sorry, not air filters. Look for air bubbles. So air bubbles here at the top, here on the side, and that's pretty much it. That's great. If you have an air bubble here trapped in the middle, you can go ahead and put this down. Take your protective film, just crudely place it back over the area with the air bubble, and then take your Q-tip and work that air bubble off. You don't want to put the Q-tip directly onto the polarizing film, because as you're kind of putting abrasions on the surface, you're going to scratch that polarizing film. So this first, then the Q-tip, and buff it out. So I'm going to lay this down here at the top because that's where my air bubbles are. And I'm going to just kind of gently move it inside to outside like that. Nice, firm, but gentle pressure. Okay, take this protective film off, and let's look at our top again. A couple here. I'm not too worried about these because it's going to be covered up by the masking when I reassemble this, but I'd like to get them off, but definitely less. So you can see that our technique here is working. We got that one still here at the top that we need to remove. So let's do that one at the top really quick. Film on top, put that down, and brush to one side. If your Q-tip is kind of getting worn like this, it's pretty hard now at this point. I'm going to throw this away, grab a brand new Q-tip. If you have something besides a Q-tip, you can certainly use that, but nothing metal for sure. Okay, let's go ahead and lift up. Okay, that one's still there. One's a little bit stubborn. It's probably just a little bit more pressure. Okay, it seems to do a good job. Now let's check the top. Still got some over there. Okay, if you can't get it with the Q-tip, I have this wooden round part on my toothpick. I'm just going to kind of roll it gently. Over the top there. Let's see if that did the trick. Okay, still got a little bit. Okay, let's take that off, and that looks better. Yeah, you might have these numerals that pop up every now and then as you're pushing down on the display. That's completely normal. Don't worry about that. But this looks really good. Okay. So now we're going to be ready to reassemble. Now at this point you might be wondering, oh man, I completely forgot. Where's my 12 o'clock? Where's my 6 o'clock? What you can kind of do is look at the display from an angle, and you can kind of make out the three red dots, or the three dots here at the top that made up the display. Worst comes to worst, when you put together the battery, the display will light up and you can see it. But kind of look for those three dots. So if I rotate this in the light, you can kind of see see if I can get those three dots to show. Yeah, it might not be showing. So I can see it with my eyes, but you can't see it. I can see the three dots here. So you just have to play around with it in the light. So the three dots represent the 12. So I'm going to turn it like this. So now 12 o'clock, 6 o'clock, right side, left side. Now let's take our parts and reassemble the watch. So let's lay out everything so you can kind of copy me here if you want to know how to reassemble this. This might look a little intimidating, but look for some landmarks, and it should be pretty easy to put this guy back. Okay, so then we have our other parts here that we'll worry about later. Okay, take our screws here, and I'll put the screws here on the corner. And our strap will go here at the bottom. Okay, so kind of just a nice spread here so you can kind of see what to work with. All right, so first thing you're going to do is you're going to take your plastic housing here. Okay, and again, with the plastic housing, you'll notice you'll have this half moon shape, and you'll have these clips here. Okay, the clips should be facing you towards the top. Okay, but we're going to turn this to the back, and let me show you what the back looks like. The back has these two teeth that kind of stick up. That's how you know it's the top side, the back side. So we're going to keep those two teeth facing towards us, and we want this half moon shape on the right side, just like that. Okay, zoom in. Now, we have a short slot here and a long slot here. Okay, so, oh, actually, before you do that, I'm sorry, you're going to take your display, flip this over, half moon here on the bottom. The clips are on top facing me. Okay, the teeth are pointing at the bottom, these two teeth here pointing at the bottom. We're going to take our display, okay, try to minimize touching it, stick it in the top portion first, so not the half moon, but the other part here, and slip it right underneath these two teeth, 1 and 2. So the display should slide underneath that. And then you have this other part of the display resting on top of the half moon. You're going to kind of pry back on the spring here, and you might have to touch the display just a little bit here, or grab a towel of some sort so you don't really put any fingerprints. Okay, and then you're going to pull back on this part and allow that clip to kind of grab the display from that side. So let me show you what that looks like. Okay, so you see here how we have our teeth here resting on top of the display, and then the tooth here, the big one, resting on top of the display here. Okay, so that's how we do that part first. So this is exactly why we don't want to cut our polarizing film too big, because if it was too big, these white borders here would be bending the film and making some possible air bubbles in there. So we'll turn this back now this way. Okay, and we have our half moon at the bottom. Turn this over so we have these two teeth facing towards you. Put this down. We have a short slot here at the bottom, long slot here at the top. We have a short piece here at the bottom and a longer piece here at the top. So the top part will go on the top. It's easier if you use tweezers. You'll just kind of insert that in and tap it down so it's flush. These are put in on their edges. So thin part, not the flat part, but the thin part goes in. And very important to insert the display first into the frame before you put these white pieces of foam. I keep forgetting the name of this. I will look it up and put it in the description because somebody keeps telling me the name and I keep forgetting. But anyways, that's that first part right there. Okay, next you're going to take this opaque piece right over here. Okay, now if you look at the opaque piece, turn to its side, we have a flat side over here, and we have these parts with the teeth facing upward here on this side. I want the parts with the teeth facing me, so I'm going to turn it this way, so the teeth are pointing up, and I'm going to turn the teeth down to the 6 o'clock position, and then I'm going to go to my display here at the bottom, and put this, oh, sorry. Wait a minute, this part I think goes first. Nope, I was right. Yeah, so put this part here, teeth here facing towards you at the bottom. Okay, next you're going to take this piece here. Okay, has 4 black little pieces on one side, blank on the other. The blank side faces down, and then you just insert it this way. It doesn't matter if this side goes here or there, it's all the same. Okay, then you're going to take this part over here. Okay, and we're going to put this black square in the middle of this black square. So the black pieces should be facing each other. Turn it like this. And you want these 2 silver contacts in the 6 o'clock position, which is here. Okay, and you're going to put this down. You're going to notice this little white tooth come up through the board, which is fine. And then another white tooth here come up through the board, which is fine. Okay, that's perfect. So now we could set this guy off to the side. Go to this part. Okay, to make things simple, I've taken out the spring, but we remember we have a little circle here that we drew in Sharpie. I know I need to put my spring in there. Let me show you what that spring looks like. Okay, you'll notice that the spring has a thicker portion or wider portion here at the bottom and a skinnier portion on top. The skinnier portion is going to go into that hole first, so it's the wider portion that should be facing you, like this, and then put it into our Sharpied out hole right here. Okay, there we go, just like that. Great. Now you notice we have a contact here and a contact here. That's going to match up to the contacts here. So we're going to take this part, put this over here. Okay, then I'm going to just flip this part over, set it on top, and then push down along the perimeter of the plastic housing, and the display will come to life because now you've connected the battery back. Then you're going to go around the corners here. You have these little clips that we pried off at the beginning. You're now going to want to squeeze these and allow them to kind of latch over their white counterparts on the opposite side of the housing. So 2 here, 1 over here, 2 over here. Just kind of use your fingers, and 1 over here. Okay, and there you go. That looks good. Now what we need to do is reset our display. So this is also called a hard reset. Oftentimes it's done when you change out the battery in a watch. The battery, by the way, is just underneath this white tab. So to do a hard reset, you're going to need a paper clip shaped like a U. And you'll notice that one end of the paper clip comes up a little bit longer or further than the other part. The part that's longer is going to go inside of a hole called AC, and the shorter part is going to touch another piece of metal, which is going to be this part of the watch. So we're going to take our longer piece here. Actually, let me mark the longer end in black so it's easier on the camera to track it. There we go. So there's that longer end in black. Let's look for that hole called AC. You'll see it's right there. So black part goes into the hole that's AC. Push it in as far as it'll go, but don't force it. And take the other end of the paper clip and just touch another piece of the metal. So now we have 2 pieces touching the watch. And when you do that and let go, the watch will reset. That's called a hard reset. And usually you want to do that to kind of clear out the display. You'll notice at the very beginning of our reassembly, we had these like tiny white characters popping up. So sometimes those odd looking white characters will continue to remain on the display even after you fully assemble the watch. And so it won't look normal. So by doing a hard reset, you kind of wipe the whole display clean, and the indices now look nice and clear. Okay, so that looks good. Now what you're going to do is you're going to turn this in the light, look for any fingerprints. I'm looking here and I don't really see any. So I'm going to take my air blaster. That's this one. Kind of give it a blast of air. If you see any fingerprints or smudges, you can take a brand new clean microfiber cloth and very gently wipe away. Remember, the polarizing film is quite fragile. And if you put too much pressure or use your nail, you're going to put a permanent mark and you'll have to do it all over again. So this looks clear. I'm just going to blast off any dust there. Set that to the side. Then I'm going to take my display, hold it where the underneath part is still facing up, set this guy a little bit further, and then go from underneath and blast this out. This is just going to remove any possible dust that might be underneath. And set that down, face up, take the masking, go ahead and blast. We're just trying to get any dust away. Okay, and that looks good. And then one more with our display. Perfect. You're going to take your masking, go ahead and put that over, just like that. You're going to take your module, make sure that the 3 triple dials up here are going to the section marked World Time on this watch. Okay, go ahead and push them in, like so. You're going to flip this guy over, okay? And another important part here. Okay, you're going to have 1, 2, 3, and 4 contacts here. You need to push these contacts in to out, or out to in, so this way. And what that's going to do is it's going to allow the pushers, the buttons on the side, to interact with these contacts, so that way you can manipulate the watch, like adjust the time or the sound. So I'm going to put a little pressure here with one finger and just push inward. There. And there we go again. So it sits nice and flat. Okay, now we're going to look at our display here, and I want you to focus just on this trough where the O-ring goes. Okay. Look at the 6 o'clock position here where my toothpick is. You see that there's no cutout. Now look at the 12 o'clock position. You'll notice that there's a little bit of a cutout here. You see that? Right over there, a little bit of a cutout. So that's where that section of the O-ring is going to go. So if we take a look at our O-ring, you'll notice that there's a little protrusion right there. So that's going to go at the 12 o'clock. Okay, take a look at this O-ring, by the way, in the light. It should have some nice reflection, okay, indicating that it's, kind of moist with oil. If it's pretty dry, it's not going to reflect light as well. What I would do at that point is take 100% silicone oil and just do a very small amount between your fingers and drag this O-ring through it to re-lubricate it. You want to use only silicone oil that's 100%. Don't use baby oil, mineral oil, any other kind of oil you have, because those different types of oil tend to eat at plastic and rubber parts, which is what these are. So 100% silicone oil, and I'll try to link where I bought that from Amazon down below. Okay, set the O-ring inside the trough. Make sure you don't have any debris on the O-ring. So any little bits of dust or debris you want to remove now, because that will compromise the seal and the water resistance when we reassemble the watch. Okay, that looks pretty good. Okay, now we're going to take our case back. Okay, our little cutout here for the O-ring is here at the 12 o'clock. So if this is 12 and that's 6, this is how you should orient your case back with the words Caaio on it. Okay, go ahead and put that down. Okay, and then we're going to take our 4 screws, and I like to loosely put these in before tightening them all the way. So just put a little pressure on the case with one of your fingers. Rotate this around. Put the other 2 in as well. Okay, and then we'll take our screwdriver. Okay, just loosely screw these in. Shouldn't be too tight. Okay, then we're going to go ahead and check this area between the case back and the green case. I don't want to see any of that O-ring popping up, which could mean that it's pinched, and again, that's going to ruin the water resistance integrity. So that looks good. I'm going to fully tighten this now. Not too tight, because you can easily strip the threads of this resin case. So that looks good there. Okay, perfect. 12 o'clock, 6 o'clock, flip this guy over. Take the short part of the strap, turn it upside down. That goes to the 12. Long part of the strap, that goes to the 6. Take your spring bars. Okay, insert one end of the spring bar first into the hole. The other end can rest on top. Go ahead and take your spring bar removal tool, pry inward, and then push with your other finger, and then give it a gentle tug to make sure that that's securely in. Go ahead and repeat for the other side. Okay, and flip this guy over, give it a quick wipe here, and we are done. Now this glass on the watch had some scratches before I even began this project, so just ignore that for now. Let's take a little bit of alcohol and clean this up a little bit. Some of this kind of looks like old tape residue that I had on there. Sometimes if my watch is in the middle of a project and hasn't been finished, I'll put painter's tape over the face to protect the really fragile glass, or mineral glass that's on this. Okay, there we go. That's better. And we are done. So let's go ahead and take a look at the watch, then I'll throw it on the wrist there. Okay. This strap, by the way, comes off of a different Casio watch. I have that in the link below. And I had to kind of notch it so that it would fit into the case for this one. But it matches really, really well. And now we have that cool negative display. Okay. Love how the indices here are almost like a nice yellowish gold against that black background, which looks great. Okay, and then here's our backside. All right, let's throw this on the wrist. Very military stealth type of theme here. Especially some of you who are really into EDC gear. You know, if you have some like green or military colored themed kits and you're looking for a watch, you can kind of make your own if you can't find the color that'll suit your kit's theme. All right, so here's a little wrist shot. Little scratch there on the glass, ignore that. That looks really great. Okay, I always like to check my functions, so starting with the bottom first. All the modes work. Go to stopwatch, bottom right, and top left to clear. And then let's see our nighttime shot. Got a little bit of sunlight in the room, so let's try to darken my screen here so you can see it. That's better. Okay, and top right button. There you go. So what happens with the negative display is the numerals will come out looking orange. So that's really cool. And let's check those top indices as well. They also appear in orange. Okay. All right, guys, so that'll do it for today's video. Again, a pretty quick mod. This one in front of you takes 3 different watches to make. One watch for the case, another watch for the masking, which is that triple yellow dialed part beneath the glass, and the watch module, and then a third watch where you need to get this strap. For some of you, that makes no sense. Why would I pay 3 watches just to make one? For me, I have 4 different Casio digital watches, so these are just spare parts laying around for me. You can also take the spare parts from these 3 watches that you don't use and make your own creations. So nothing will be wasted because all of these Casio AE 1200 and AE 1300 lines are all interchangeable, so they will work when you transplant the parts onto the other. All right, guys, that'll do it for today's video. Any comments or questions or tips, please put them down below. And as always, have fun, and I will see you guys on the next one.